I mean, the lesson of the past 12 days is that Iran was foolish not to get nuclear weapons, in my opinion. And the lesson now is to go out and get nuclear weapons, because if you had nuclear weapons, the Israelis and the Americans would not attack you. So I would just say that even if you get the Shah's son in power in Iran, I bet a lot of money that after a short period of time, he'd be very interested in building nuclear weapons, because, again, it makes good strategic sense.
So it turns out Israel's war on Iran has backfired on Israel in a big way. What? Not only have the cities been decimated, Tel Aviv took a lot of hits, and so did Haifa. We saw the video I just dropped today about the mayor of Haifa. One piece, oh God, Trump's got to do something. Please stop this. Right? So because they picked a fight with Iran, a fight they couldn't win. And here's Mearsheimer here's to tell you all about how Israel's war on Iran backfired. Let's watch.
All the evidence, Glenn, is that the bombing campaign by Israel against Iran, which started, of course, on June 13th, has had exactly the opposite effect in terms of the leadership of Iran. The hardliners have taken over. The Revolutionary Guards are in control more than they ever were. The Ayatollah Khamenei has been weakened because he's been forced to basically go into hiding, and he's not in a position where he can command the country in any meaningful way. And furthermore, all the evidence is that the people are rallying around the flag. And we have a rich history of this happening every time a country launches a bombing campaign against another country for the purposes of regime change. We have a rich historical record here, and there is not a single instance, I want to emphasize, not a single instance where bombing from the air alone has caused regime change. And all the evidence is that it causes a rally around the flag effect. So the idea that the Israelis are going to cause regime change with their air campaign is not a serious argument. And if you look at what's happened over the past 12 days, it has not turned out that the country is on the verge of regime change. If anything, the regime is in a better situation today than it was on June 12th, the day before the campaign started. So this is a failure.
So it was a failure because the goal of Israel was regime change. They knew that they weren't making a nuclear bomb. They knew that. And Trump hit their nuclear facilities, but what they really wanted was regime change. And exactly what he says: whenever you bomb a country, the people rally around their own country. And now you have the hardliners are now more in control because of this. So just like what, Kurt?
They were losing control briefly because everybody was sick of the Ayatollah. But because a big evil monster called America and its little buddy, best friend Israel, are bearing down on them, blowing them up, starving them, they're all rallying together. Isn't that something? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? It's almost like how Israelis hate Netanyahu, but yet rallied around him. I don't think it's a failure at all. I think Israel wants them to hate them because they want this war sooner or later. So no, it's a success because, keep in mind, the ultimate energy source, not oil, not natural gas for Israel, is anti-Semitism.
That's right.
So they drill for that sweet anti-Semitism that keeps Israel going.
So you can't be a victor and a victim, right? So
Theodore Herzl said it. Theodore Herzl, the founder, he goes, as anti-Semitism gets bigger, I grow, meaning he wanted it.
So the real money is in losing in the donations game and all the stupid blind Americans who fork it over to them. So there you go. So that's how the Israel attack on Iran actually backfired. It made the hardliners more in control. It made people rally around the flag of Iran, and people are disenchanted with the Ayatollah. They are disenchanted with their government. Well, this had the exact opposite effect. Just like how people hated George Bush, and then there was the 9/11 attacks, and people rallied. George Bush approval rating went up to like 80%.
Remember that?
It's the exact same thing. It's the exact
Hillary
same.
wanted to hug him.
That's right. And let's keep in mind the reason why Benjamin Netanyahu is doing these wars. He's doing a war in Yemen. He's doing a war on Gaza. He's doing a war in Lebanon. He's still bombing Syria while occupying it, and he started a war with Iran. This is the one guy. So the problem there, just as Erdogan and Turkey said, the problem is Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. The problem isn't Iran. The problem isn't Syria, Libya, Iraq. It isn't. It's Israel, as we've told you. And so again, it's good. It's backfired. It's backfired on them. And here's Mearsheimer going to talk. So now here's the irony, Kurt, that if they did have a nuclear bomb, this war would have never happened. And here's Mearsheimer.
Dude, I didn't even think of that. That's really funny. If they'd had a nuke, we could have prevented this.
We could have prevented this war. So here, let's. And it hurt Israel. This war hurt Israel. As I'm going to show you a Steve Bannon video in the next segment. Steve Bannon said that Trump had to come in and save Israel. Okay, so let's watch this.
Because one of the concerns I have is that although this part of the war for the moment has ended, meaning there's no more planes flying or missiles flying over Iran and killing people and destroying things, I can't believe that regime change is not still very much in the minds of many, many people in Washington and Tel Aviv. President Trump today said he didn't want regime change. He thinks the chaos that it would cause would be nowhere near worth the price. But you certainly have the U.S. and Israel funding various factions. You have the MEK, other factions that are loyal to the Mossad or to the CIA or to the MI6 that. And I guess my question to you is, compared to Libya, are those significant? Are they, those kinds of militias and proxies, capable of fighting a meaningful ground war to bring about regime change if they also have the air cover from Israel and the U.S.?
Well, the fact is that they have not been able to do it up to now. And after what's happened over the past 12 days, the regime has every incentive to crack down on those groups and make sure that they can't cause any trouble. Now, can I say with 100% certainty that there won't be an uprising in 6 months or 12 months? No, I can't. It's very hard to say how this plays out over time inside of Iran.
So the idea is they wanted regime change. You can't get a regime change war just by bombing alone. It doesn't work. Right? You have to have ground forces. That's why the United States had to actually send ground forces into Iraq. They couldn't just bomb them. They have to have, in Libya, they already had ground forces fighting, not the United States military, but they had terrorists well-funded fighting against Gaddafi. They had ground troops already. Same thing in Syria. There was ground troops in there. So you can't just do it with air power. You're going to have to send troops in. And so the question here is, well, there's, groups inside of Iran that want to fight against the government and overthrow it. And could they do it with the air cover from the United States? And he's saying, well, now the government has every right to crack down on them even harder. That's what he's saying. There we go.
But the fact is that there is no evidence now of an uprising. And you also have a regime that has powerful incentives to make sure that that remains the case for the foreseeable future. So I don't think you're going to get regime change. But Glenn, then the question pops up, what happens if you do get regime change? What's the happy ending here? Are you telling me that we're going to get a new regime that is going to say, we don't want nuclear weapons. We don't want to cause Israel or the United States any trouble in the region. And we're going to behave ourselves according to the dictates of Israel. You think that's going to happen?
Well, the dream is to get the Shah's son, who was a puppet of the U.S. and Israel, back into power in Iran. He's going to fly from Paris or whatever and be welcomed with open arms by the Iranians. And I think you see he's being treated almost as like this, like Juan Guaido, the legitimate president of Iran, or the monarch of Iran, by multiple Western media outlets. And that clearly is the plan. They have that Ahmed Shalabi, too, was going to take over Iraq and be so welcomed despite not having lived in Iraq for 40 years. That is the vision.
That is the vision. And if you believe that, I have a bridge I want to sell you. This is not going to happen. I would also point out to you, of course, when the revolution in Iran took place in 1979, it was the Shah who was overthrown. The Shah had an ambitious nuclear program, and the Shah was committed to acquiring nuclear weapons. And the reason is that it makes sense from Iran's point of view to have nuclear weapons. Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel and former defense minister as well, once said that he believed that Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons because it made so much sense. Just think about that statement. He, of course, is a very smart man, and he is correct. It makes eminently good sense for Iran to have nuclear weapons. I have said on numerous occasions in public that if I had been the Iranian national security advisor, they would have nuclear weapons today. I mean, the lesson of the past 12 days is that Iran was foolish not to get nuclear weapons, in my opinion. And the lesson now is to go out and get nuclear weapons, because if you had nuclear weapons, the Israelis and the Americans would not attack you. So I would just say that even if you get the Shah's son in power in Iran, I bet a lot of money that after a short period of time, he'd be very interested in building nuclear weapons because, again, it makes good strategic sense.
So even if they get their Shah back, he's probably going to want to get nuclear weapons because he doesn't want to end up like Gaddafi or Assad or Saddam Hussein. So and now, I don't understand why like Russia or China doesn't sneak a nuke to Iran. Why? I don't know. I have to ask someone why that hasn't happened. That doesn't make sense because they're allies. So why wouldn't they send a nuke to Iran? I don't understand. Anyway, so there you go. Anything to add to that, Kurt?
I think I love the irony that the regime change probably is going to be Israel.
Yes.
If the regime change look, I mean, I can't really forgive Trump for all the not doing the other things, but I will give him a lot of laughs if at the end of the day, this ends with regime change in Israel. I got to admit that I can't be any funnier than that if he pulls that off.
Come see us live on tour in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Alberta, Calgary, Vancouver. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.